It was very common to put a sickle over the neck of the person who could be a vampire.
From murder islands to baby bones, the world is filled with bone-chilling mysteries waiting to be unraveled. In this article, we'll delve into the depths of the unknown and explore the craziest revelations that have sent shivers down the spines of experts and curious minds alike. Number 10. The Knife-Armed Man.
It was very common to put a sickle over the neck of the person who could be a vampire.
Back in 2018, up in northern Italy, archaeologists stumbled onto something pretty wild. They were digging around a mass burial site from the 6th to 8th centuries CE and found something that'd make you scratch your head. Among the remains was a middle-aged guy with a missing arm below the elbow, and instead of a regular prosthetic, he had a knife in its place. His teeth were worn down, and his shoulder had a bone ridge, suggesting he used his mouth to tighten straps on that knife. Nearby, they found a buckle and some decayed leather, which probably was part of his setup. So what do you think? Scissor hands in real life or a hardcore medieval warrior? Number 9. Unwanted babies.
Grisly, don't you think?
It is grisly. Because of that, we spent a lot of time and effort in trying to find out the whys and wherefore.
Back in 1988, in Ashkelon, a southern city in Israel, underneath an old bathhouse, archaeologists stumbled upon a sewer from way back in the Roman and Byzantine days. They also found the skeletons of nearly 100 newborn babies. What made this discovery all the more eerie was that these tiny skeletons displayed no signs of physical harm or trauma, and the dental analysis revealed that they had survived for less than 3 days. At first, they thought these abandoned babies were all girls, which was sadly common back then. But further digging revealed that both boys and girls were in the mix. So, what might explain this heartbreaking discovery? Well, some experts think these babies were left there by sex workers who worked around the bathhouse. What do you think? Number 8. Scotland Witch Prison. Back in the 16th century, Scotland went through a witch hunt frenzy, thanks to their new witchcraft laws.
This is a society where people really believe in magic and supernatural beings. You could meet the devil walking down a street.
The year 1597 witnessed an unbelievable 31 witchcraft cases in Aberdeen alone. Faced with this surge in supposed witches, you might wonder what the town did. The answer? They took an unconventional route, using the one place witches might fear: a church. Historians dug up some fascinating stuff, and it turns out St. Mary's Chapel, a local church on Aberdeen's outskirts, had a surprising second gig as a jail for these witchy suspects. What's crazier is that you can still see evidence of it today: a 2-inch iron ring stuck in the chapel wall. Historical records confirm they used this ring to chain up the accused witches, turning this holy place into a creepy prison during those witch hunts. Number 7. Vampire graves. A bunch of archaeologists dug up a really weird graveyard in Drowsko, Poland, dating back to the 17th century. Some folks were buried with heavy stones or sickles laid on their necks. It's like they were trying to make sure the dead stayed dead and didn't cause any trouble from beyond the grave. Now, to understand why they did this, we've got to go back in time a bit. Back in the day, traditional Slavic folks used to cremate their dead, thinking it would free their souls.
In the 19th century, people used to believe that vampires are one of the most active demonic creatures.
But then around the 7th to 9th centuries, Christianity came along and they started burying people instead. But this new burial practice seemed to freak them out a bit. They were worried that the departed might come back as vampires, so they placed heavy stones or sickles on their neck to, keep them down for good. Number 6. Pit of Bones. Let's rewind to 1987 in the Atapuerca Mountains of Spain, where something mind-blowing went down. Researchers stumbled upon a cave that held the skeletal remains of no less than 28 individuals. Radiocarbon dating placed these bones at a jaw-dropping range of around 430,000 BC. But the truly astonishing revelation came after years of meticulous investigation. One of the individuals had met a violent end. They had been murdered. The researchers tried to piece together the victim's skull and found not one, but 2 head wounds. Although the victim's age and gender remained uncertain, they had suffered repeated blows from a blunt instrument, possibly a spear or a stone axe. Number 5. Shimao sacrificial pits. In Shimao, a cool spot along the Great Wall of China, you'll find this big Bronze Age settlement with a pyramid that's all stepped and impressive. But guess what's under that pyramid? Archaeologists dug up at least 6 pits loaded with human skulls. Those skulls belonged to 80 young girls. So why on earth were they sacrificed? Well, in ancient China, sacrifices were a pretty common deal, but they had different reasons. Sometimes people did it to please the river god Hebo, hoping for some good atmosphere or protection from nature's fury. Other times they used sacrifices in funerals, like burying slaves with their masters or concubines with their lords, maybe to keep them company in the afterlife. Number 4. Murder Island. Australia, a land already filled with its share of creepy and scary wildlife, also boasts a place known as Murder Island. It is actually Beacon Island, and the story behind this nickname is downright spine-chilling. Let's rewind to 1629, when the Dutch ship Batavia embarked on its first ever voyage. It had a mix of soldiers, sailors, and regular folks on board, all heading toward what's now Indonesia. But things took a terrifying turn when a mutiny went south, and the ship ended up wrecked off the coast. Many poor souls went down with the ship, drowning in the chaos. Around 300 survivors washed ashore on Beacon Island, thinking they'd escaped the worst. Some of these survivors, whether driven mad by their ordeal or just plain evil, went on a rampage. They murdered 125 of their fellow survivors and subjected others to horrifying sexual assaults. It was a nightmare on an island paradise. Shockingly, even after nearly 400 years, the evidence of this horrific event continues to surface. Scientists have been unearthing the remains of the murder victims and those who managed to escape the massacre. Number 3. Lost Expedition. Sir John Franklin was a seasoned explorer with big dreams of sailing through the Canadian Arctic to find the elusive Northwest Passage. He had 2 ships, the HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror, packed with 129 crew members, all ready for this epic adventure. But unfortunately, Mother Nature had other plans. These ships got stuck in ice, and despite their best efforts, they couldn't break free. As if the cold and isolation weren't bad enough, things took a seriously dark turn when crew members started falling like flies. Some got lead poisoning from their canned food, others froze to death, and it was just a nightmare. But later expeditions found some disturbing stuff among the wreckage. They stumbled upon remains that hinted at something unthinkable: cannibalism. It's as if, when all hope was lost and food ran out, some of these poor sailors had to resort to the most desperate survival tactic. Cut marks on bones and other macabre findings painted a grim picture of the crew's final days. Number 2. Chemical War. In 2009, archaeologists unearthed a chilling piece of history during an excavation of the ancient Roman city of Dura Europos, in what is now modern-day Syria. What they found shed light on one of the earliest known instances of chemical warfare, a dark chapter from the past that dates back to 256 CE. It's 256 CE, and Dura Europos is under siege. The Romans who were holed up there decided to get crafty. They dug tunnels that led right into the shaft mines that the Persians had dug as part of their siege tactics. But inside those tunnels, it wasn't swords or spears that did the Romans in. It was something far more insidious. They accidentally lit up sulfur and pitch, creating a deadly cloud of sulfur dioxide. The sulfur dioxide, once inhaled, underwent a sinister transformation inside the soldiers' lungs. It turned into sulfuric acid, a highly corrosive substance that wreaked havoc within their respiratory systems, leading to a terrible and painful death. What's wild about this is how painful it is. We usually think of chemical warfare as a modern thing, but this discovery proves that people have been getting creative with toxins for a very long time. The siege of Dura Europos is like a window into a brutal past, where even in the heat of battle, innovation and desperation could lead to terrifying tactics. Number 1. Scottish mummies. Sometimes you stumble upon the weirdest and creepiest stuff. Like this story from 2001. Scotland, a Bronze Age dig and 2 skeletons. In the heart of Scotland, during an excavation of a Bronze Age settlement, archaeologists stumbled upon a pair of ancient skeletons, one belonging to a man and the other to a woman. What made this discovery even more spine-chilling was the realization that these remains were roughly 3,000 years old and had been deliberately mummified, preserved within the eerie depths of peat bogs to slow down the natural decomposition process. When the experts took a closer look, they realized these skeletons were like a messed-up puzzle. The woman was a mashup of a male skull, a female torso, and some mystery arm. And as for the man, well, he was made from not 1, not 2, but 3 different dudes' bones. This discovery is just plain weird, and it's got archaeologists scratching their heads. It's a real-life mystery that makes you wonder what in the world was going on back then. Don't you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.